Hey everyone, good evening. It's B. I am here to read you some spooky stories that are all reported to be true. They are from Reddit. I will leave the links to them in the description below if you're interested in them any further to check them out yourself and whatnot. I have about 4 of them for you tonight, and they're all kind of like childhood stories. We're going to start with younger kids, and then as the stories move on, they'll become teenagers and go into high school and whatnot. So I hope you enjoy these spooky, paranormal, true stories. Please enjoy. The first story is called My Grandmother's Haunted House by Noodles for Dinner 1. This happened in 2011 when I was 7 years old. And I had just talked to my mom about this incident and decided to share it. So I lived with my grandmother, father, mother, and 2 dogs quite far from any town. The house was big, so I would usually play hide and seek with my mom a lot. I don't remember which month it was, so my mom filled me in on this. She said it was October, during the holidays. This one particular day, my dad was out driving my grandmother to the hospital, as she had an appointment with the doctor, so I was left alone with my mom. After several rounds of hide and seek and watching a movie with her, it began to get dark outside, and my dad still wasn't home. I had always been scared of potential home invasions, so I was paranoid all day because my dad wasn't with us. He made me feel very safe. Me and my mom decided to play Monopoly. Fast forward about an hour. When I was 7, I thought I was very sly, so I would keep stealing money from my mom's stash. But now that I look back, she was probably pretending not to see. As I was taking a $50 bill from her Monopoly cash, she said the power will go out soon. And this left me completely puzzled, as I had no idea how she would know this. But sure enough, it went out in about 15 minutes later, and I started to panic, because as most little kids are, I was afraid of the dark. I later found out that there was a power outage in my area because of a storm, and my mom was notified of it. She handed me a phone and let me play my favorite game on it, which at the time was Doom. She told me to go hide under the bed sheets if I was scared and that she would be back soon. I asked her where she was going, but she didn't answer. As she headed out of the room, she locked the door. I laid under the sheets, killing some monsters on the game for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Footsteps were heard in the kitchen, which was next to the room that I was in. So I took the sheets off of my head and yelled out, "Mom?" Glad that she was back because I was really scared, but no answer was heard. But the footsteps didn't stop, so I yelled again, "Mom, can you please come in here? I'm scared." After I had said that, the footsteps stopped completely. I got a sudden rush of adrenaline, so I held tight onto the phone and dashed out to the kitchen, which was empty. I was left puzzled, but didn't wait for long as I ran to the door, unlocked it as there's keys on the inside too, and ran to the corridor. So the corridor has 4 doors. One on the right side, the one at the very back I was never allowed to go in, and I learned that the room was where my great-grandmother died and no one had touched it ever since. It also had stairs next to it, leading to the 2nd floor, and one at the front which led to the outside. The 4th door I had come through, which was the closest to the outside door, so I quickly opened the outside door, ready to run out, but the rush of adrenaline was gone, and I got scared of the outside too. It was very dark, and I was barely able to see. My only choices were, 1, go back to the room where I came from, 2, scream for my mother. I chose number 2 and started screaming for my mom over and over again. I guess I wasn't loud enough because there were no replies. I remember starting to sweat and panic, different scenarios playing through my little head. Scenarios like a murderer coming to kill my mom and coming for me next, or my mom leaving me forever. I know, stupid, but I was only 7 after all. I remember looking down at my feet and beginning to cry. More footsteps were heard, but this time behind me. I looked behind me and saw a silhouette of a tall person. I'm assuming it's male due to the body build, at the end of the hallway, standing in front of the door. I can't recall what he looked like because it was all black. I stared at him for about 15 seconds in pure horror. This got my adrenaline pumping again, and I ran out of the door towards the outside toilet, only to be greeted by my mother, who looked worried as hell. After I told her what happened through uncontrollable sobs, my dad was in the driveway already parking his car. My granny was left at the hospital for some treatment. He searched the house, but no one was found, so my mom told me it was just my imagination. But I know what I saw and what I heard. Fast forward 7 more years. I live in another house, and I randomly remembered this incident and talked to my mom about it. She seemed quite hesitant about telling me this, but at the end I convinced her to tell me. What she said gave me chills. Apparently, when I was 4 years old, I started to stare at one particular corner in the kitchen and laugh like crazy. My mom would ask me what's so funny, and every time I'd point to the same corner, but never told her why it was funny. After a few months, the random giggles I let out when staring at the corner didn't stop. What made my mom lose it was the fact that I started speaking random German words that I'd never heard before. We have no relatives that are German or can speak German, and I wasn't introduced to technology at that age either. My mother knew it's German because she can actually speak a little, but she's never spoken it before. She bribed me with candy to tell her how I learned to say the following words in German: it, help, chocolate, shower, and war. My response completely shocked her. I pointed to the same corner again and said, "He taught me how." My mom kept her cool, though, and she asked me who I was talking about, and I said, "The man who makes me laugh." My mom asked me what he looked like, but I only said he looks like a shadow and that he's from Germany. When she asked me where the man lived, I pointed to the 2nd floor. This all made sense because I've always hated the 2nd floor and never went up there because I felt like I was being watched. My parents took it upon themselves to Google the history of the house, and sure enough, it was built by Germans. I don't remember any of this, but my mom kept on reassuring me that it happened. My father said he remembers it too, but decided not to tell me until now. I talked to the German man in the corner up until 5 years of age. I'm pretty sure you can put 2 and 2 together, but if not, the man I saw when I was 7 was the same man I was talking to when I was 4. Every time I go back there to visit my grandmother, I always feel uneasy. That was pretty spooky, you know? Alright, so the next one is called Terrifying Childhood Dreams by Cringy Lord 420. Great name. First off, I'd like to mention that these are experiences I had many years ago, and they were all in dreams. So there's a large chance that not all I remember is completely true, but this is how I remember them happening. Secondly, I'd like to say that the last dream I had in the first story was when I was 9 or 8. Once again, there's a definite portion of this that is true, but I'm not sure what really happened, and what's my memory being messed up. Thirdly, these are 3 separate experiences, but I can't help but feel that they're all combined some way. So these dreams started when I was only about 6, and they were normally short, strange scenes of me waking up in my room and some gruesome, monstrous creature, always looking different at the beginning, would either scream, roar, or just completely attack me, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat. As soon as I got older, the dreams got longer, diving more in depth into the story, The first change I remember is sometimes I'd get it to me, and I'd wake up with a weird pain in my chest. Other times, however, I'd escape it, and before anything else would happen, I'd wake up. Every month or so that this went on, the dreams would get longer, and the monstrous creatures would always get more gruesome and more scary. One time, I ended up escaping the monster and making it to my basement for safety. After the one time this occurred, it would always be me running to the basement for safety. I would run into the laundry room for safety, and my mom would lock the door with me and my sister inside, but the door wasn't able to hold it. I remember seeing these bloody claws ripping through the thick wooden doors, and my mom flipping out, sending me and my sister to hide. After we hid, there'd be a loud scream followed by silence. Every once in a while, it'd find me, and each time the dream occurred, it was like the creature was learning and understanding how I thought, because it would occur more often. The gruesome creature would sometimes eat my sister in front of me, only to force me awake after, and other times it would torture me, waking me only after it seemed satisfied. These dreams occurred through a 3-year period, happening about once a week, maybe 2, or maybe down to once a month at some points. The last time I ever had a dream like this, it was the exact same thing, except for this time, when it came to take either me or my sister, I stood up to it. I remember its beady red eyes glaring at me, and its smile with sharp, bloody teeth, as if it was enjoying this. It was about 7 feet tall, had razor-sharp claws, and its body was fat and covered in matted brown fur. The creature laughed, and to this day, it is still one of the most sinister things that I think I've ever heard. I had terrible anger issues back then, and so I was about to scream my head off at this. I looked it dead in the eyes and screamed at it to go away, and then I woke up. And these dreams have never occurred again. The next strange experience was when I was a bit older, maybe 10 or 11. I woke up from a normal sleep, but I didn't feel awake. I think it might have been sleep paralysis, but I'm not sure because I've never experienced it prior to this. I felt a cold tap on my hand, and I had a shiver roll down my spine. Wanting to see what tapped my finger, I rolled my head over. I saw an 8-foot-tall shadow crouched over me with long fingers extending. I tried to scream and move, but I couldn't make a noise. I shut my eyes and held them shut. That's where I think I fell asleep. I don't remember anything from after I shut my eyes, so that's where that part ends. The last experience I had was when I was 12. I fell asleep like any ordinary night, but then my dream started. I think it was out-of-body experience, but I'm not sure. I was standing in my room, but I saw myself in my bed, sleeping. I was confused and looked around my room. There were weird, looming shadows, and when I looked back at my body, something was lifting me up. I don't completely remember what it was, but I do remember seeing it carrying me over its shoulder into my living room. I followed it, and I saw it throw my body onto the couch, and that's when I moved myself towards it, only to wake up in the exact spot I had seen myself in my dream. I've no clue how I got there, and what happened during this dream, but these are the 3 of the scariest things that I've ever had happen to me. Childhood dreams are scary, y'all. Those are insane. Alright, so the next one, we're moving forward, high school stories. This one is called The Botanical Garden by Heydrich Reinhold. Back when I was in first year of high school, I was part of this choir where we would sing the songs our school required us to sing, like the national anthem or some church song. To be honest, I wasn't the best singer and only joined for the benefit of skipping class. The skipping class part was great and all, but staying late for practice was kind of a downside, especially when it was before a big school event. One day, we had to practice in the school, near the school botanical garden, because the place where we usually practice was being occupied by another group of people. Some of the members of the choir were kind of hesitant about practicing near the gardens because there had been a lot of scary stories surrounding the place, and no two accounts are the same. I, on the other hand, just wanted practice to be over. We practiced until about 8 or 9 p.m. Around this time, there would only be 2 gates that would be open if one wanted to leave the school. The college gate, which was all the way across from where we practiced, and the track and field gate, which was near but you had to pass through the garden to get there. Me, being a lazy man, decided to take the shortest route outside the school, while the rest wished me luck and went the opposite way. I believe that any place can be creepy as long as it is dark, and the gardens were not an exception. I brought my phone to call my parents. It rang once before being answered. I talked to my phone, telling my parents where to pick me up, but no answer. I stopped the call and called again. Same thing. No answer. I called for the 3rd time to ask them to pick me up, almost shouting into the phone for an answer, but still, no answer. Finally, I gave up and decided to text them. After walking through the garden for a couple more minutes, I finally reached my waiting destination without incident. It was a creepy walk, but I was kind of relieved that nothing out of the ordinary happened. My parents came after about 15 minutes of waiting, but something was off. When the car stopped in front of me, they got out and asked if I was okay with a very worried expression on their faces. I said that I was fine. They told me that they got calls from my friends. And I asked them what they hear, and they said that they heard my voice saying, "Help me," over and over and over again. That's spooky. Alright, here is our last one. It is called Never Play with a Ouija Board by Celluloid Addiction. This story happened in October of 2004, when I was a 3rd-year high school student. My friends and I stuck around the school late at night after our annual Halloween party. We'd agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. It wasn't the brightest idea, but we needed a thrill. We found a nice spot under a huge nar tree and proceeded with our half-assed ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys, 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Rumors had it our school was haunted, but we'd never really experienced anything firsthand. And it was Halloween, when all the spirits come out to play. We all wanted to get spooked. Also, we'd never seen a Ouija board firsthand, so we were all pretty excited. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house, built in the 1800s when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used often, located beside a creepy old Jesuit house. People only go there when they need to use the restroom, store equipment on one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends. We sat down in the middle of an open space, but only an exposed bare bulb nearby illuminating the surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios. It was your typical dumb kids doing dumb things. My friend, who brought the Ouija board, proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was the glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious, but it gave us the ability to see what was written in the dark. Not knowing what to do, and going after what we've seen in movies, we all proceeded to place our index finger on top of the planchette. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start the ritual. Plus, the board didn't come with instructions, so we just decided to throw in a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are spirits living here, please talk to us," one of the girls joined in. We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still, nothing. Not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked the planchette, and the girl who brought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We all placed our index fingers on the planchette once more and asked, "If there's anyone there, we would like to make contact." "Don't break the circle," one of my friends jokingly said. "Shut up," I whispered. We were just about ready to give up when the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke and the darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. "Okay, don't break the circle," I yelled out. "Is anyone there?" I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. "Guys, I'm scared," my friend sitting beside me said. "My mom warned me about playing with forces we don't know." "Did you die here? Were you killed in the war? Are you the headless priest that roams these halls? Do you know Jose Rizal? Are you a hottie?" my friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random stupid questions around, but nothing. "This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore," my friend said, exasperated. We were all thinking the same thing. Just then, a group of dogs from the neighboring house started barking at us through the chain-link fence. These 6 dogs were growling and showing teeth. We all screamed without finishing the ritual and bolted right out of there. We didn't see each other until after Halloween break, and this is where the story gets creepy. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late after hanging out with her friends from the neighborhood when she realized she forgot the keys to her house. So she called her brother up, who was still then sharing a room with her, and what he said crept the hell out of her. He swore that she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walk in a while ago, and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was all we thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and seeing things, but then my other friends started telling us about an encounter she had that Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the lights started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. Your typical horror movie visuals, shrug it off to faulty wiring. But just then she saw the door to her room open, and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop of their staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. "No way," my best friend, who just joined in the conversation, said in disbelief. "Something happened to me as well." He recalled that he was sleeping one night when he woke up feeling really uncomfortable. He described his vision as having TV-like status, and a feeling of heaviness surrounded him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody, charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through a window. I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I had an almost run-in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home after fooling around with the Ouija board when I felt our car jerk. I woke up instantly. Looking out the window, I found out that we'd been hit by a huge oil tanker. I had panicked and leapt out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash since the front of the car was a total wreck. I still don't have an explanation why those things happened to us, but thank God nothing happened after that, and I've never played or gotten near a Ouija board ever since. So, just to give you an idea, I think these are all real spooky, and they're all purportedly true, written by the authors. But, even if you don't believe in these things, if you and your friends are fooling around with a Ouija board, please remember that you tell the board goodbye. You tell, even if you don't believe in spirits or demons or whatever, when you're done with the Ouija board, you always take the planchette to the goodbye spot and say, "Goodbye, you are not welcome to stay here." Always do that. Always close the ritual. That's why those kids had that weird, crazy thing happen to them, because they didn't say goodbye. So, regardless of whether you believe in ghosts or not, as long as you're respectful to them, they will be respectful to you. So, I hope you enjoyed these spooky, scary, supposedly true stories, And I hope to see you next time with even more. Stay spooky. Good night.